Welcome to NTU Tuesday Live. Tonight, it's all about community policing. I'd like to introduce our guests. Let me welcome specially to this program Governor Aminu Bello Masari of Katsina State. Thank you for being here, Mr. Governor.
Thank you very much.
Right. We are also joined tonight by Senator Dauda Jika, who's Chairman, Senate Committee on Police Affairs. Thanks for being here, Senator.
Thank you, Mr.
Let me also welcome to this program retired Commissioner of Police Emmanuel Ojukwu. He was at one time spokesperson for the police, first public relations officer. Thanks for being here, CP.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, and we're joined tonight also by Bola Bakare. He's a security analyst and public affairs commentator. Thanks for being here with us.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Let's talk about the approach to curbing crimes and criminality in the current situation Nigeria is. What and how can you advance this partnership and the kind of role it can play in bringing down, even if it's not possible to totally eliminate, to bring it down?
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you very much, sir. From the angle of analysis of security, let's have the architecture of what we are talking about. Let's start from the Federal Republic of Nigeria that runs the Nigeria Police Force, cascaded down to the 36 states, cascaded down to the 774 local governments, cascaded down to the over 10,000 wards, cascaded down to close to 50,000-60,000 zones, and that is where you have your community. Now that you know where you stand and what rung of the ladder you are, then we now need to look at what is community policing. How do we effect it the most? What are the core values? What are the principles? I'll tell you this tonight. The core values of community policing is interaction, partnership, and problem solving. When it comes to the principles of community policing, honestly, the number one factor is expanding the mandate of the police by going into the grassroots, decentralizing the police operations by having other appendages, and also taking care of immediate and long-term problem solving. You see, when we have a good architecture on ground, we know where we are going, then we know how to apportion whatever we have on hand to tackle the situation we have on hand. Community policing is the best approach to it. But honestly, we need to look at the situation on our hands holistically.
Let me just dwell on this a little longer. While the police, the Nigeria Police Force, is a formal organization,
that's right,
policing in a community, like CP Emmanuel Ojukwu said, would depend to a large extent on the community understanding their roles in maintaining security.
That's right.
So it ceases to be the business of, well, the police will come and take care of that, but the community now puts itself in there and say, look, you don't have to wear a uniform or carry a rank in order to be, a security watch in your community.
Absolutely.
Are we having that? Because without that, some Nigerians say, well, if you don't have that feeling initially, then we might just well go back to the same system and say, well, security is the business of the police.
We cannot say that, because part of the architecture we are looking at is, take for instance, the force, our police force. How many are they in comparison to the population? They are less than 400,000. And we're talking about close to 200 million people. So basically, the people at the community level, the roles that have cascaded, they are highly important. We are going to bring them into this, and they're going to be a very, very, very substantial part of it. I'll go ahead by saying this. In a community, like CP Ojukwu said, it is the people that generates the intel. They generate the intel the police can work with. You see, when I cascaded it down, now when the intel is now available at the grassroots level, it goes back up. The police might not be at the zone level. In most politicians will know the language of zones, wards, and this. At the zone level, the policeman might not have it that good at that level. But the people in the area, community leaders, royal fathers, we know what is happening, and then that is where we start to gather the pennies that makes up the pound in security maintenance.
Back to the senator and say, well, how serious are you taking this issue?
I went on an oversight to various police divisions in the country and police commands. What we saw there was an ISO, because the police is grossly underfunded. South Africa, with a population of 50 million people, have about 1.9 million police. It's only on that basis that we can be able to resolve the problem of Nigerian police. The previous administration, when we saw the budget, the police overhead was barely 4 billion naira. That is for their overhead. When you subdivide that, it cannot even fuel the patrol vehicles in the country. When we went to the police divisions, we found that they receive only 30,000 naira monthly for their running costs, as their running cost, because of non-availability of funds. So that is why we now come up as legislators, and as part of our legislative agenda, we come up with that police trust fund bill to solve these problems.
Still along those lines, yes. The community, you think that the community is holding on too fast to the past?
I preach one syndrome. I am not saying the police force in totality is without blame, because I believe two things. The devil is still alive, and there are imps around. Two, if you are a Christian, even Jesus, in his 12 disciples, he had a Judas. So basically in the police force, there will be bad eggs. So also in all endeavors, in all spheres of government and what have you. That is part of what makes us imperfect human beings on earth. Now let's look at the situation we have on our hands. We're talking in terms of security, and taking security to the grassroots by community policing. I'll tell you this. Nobody wants to sleep with his eyes open. Everybody wants to sleep with both eyes closed. All it takes is to give the enabling environment to make sure we sleep with both eyes closed. Unfortunately, we don't have it. The number one factor, we discussed that. The police force is grossly inadequate. Of the less than 400,000, half of them are doing security for VVIPs. We need to give the enabling environment to the police force. And the only way to do that is for us to look at crime in itself. What is the basis of the crime that we're trying to fight? Before we call in the police, before we call in the community police, before we call in parents, fathers, royal fathers, ex-eterial religious fathers, what was the basis of the crime in itself? I'll give that to us because it's highly important. Because if we don't fight that, we are not fighting the crime.
Well, we have another caller on the line, I believe. I'm not sure if the caller from Adamawa is still with us. All right, so let's go over to Adamawa. We have this call coming through. Hello.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
My question is directed to Titi Ojuku.
Okay.
Why is it that each time a policeman is involved in a crime, they always pursue it and get the culprit? Just like the case of Taraba, 5 policemen were killed.
Okay.
It did not take a week, they were able to get the culprit.
Okay.
But if it were another person, it takes time. It takes more than a year, and at the end of it, you hear that you will not no longer hear the story. The second question: I don't know synergy that is between you and the military. If it is a good synergy, by the videos we saw today and yesterday, it were the military that even directed the killing of the policemen. What kind of synergy is existing? Thank you.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much. That's a question which certainly Spe Emmanuel Ojukwu can handle.
Well, it may not be correct to say that. There are policemen who have been killed by armed robbers some 5-10 years ago. The police have not been able to find out who did that. But the instant case is mentioned, they know it's a case of strong national importance. And so the police is duty bound to make sure that that particular case where the policemen were killed is resolved as quickly as possible so they can get back to their beats. Besides, there's the issue of morale. If somebody has done a good job, he needs commendation. Those men who were killed, from records we read, they've done marvelously well in many cases. There's also many cases help Nigeria to survive in so many areas. Now they become victims in some questionable circumstances. Their colleagues who are coming up, those they've mentored, may not be so well disposed to do more to the service of the nation. If by doing more you get killed,